There's a new pirate game in the news. Thank God that it's not the one that we're both thinking about. Resident Evil 6 is going to be getting a remake. Ghost Recon may be back. And are we about to get a Sega versus Capcom crossover game? Welcome to your Monday episode of The Blip. So, let's start off with something that's might be true, but at the exact same time, might be a load of shit. And that is in regard to Satoshi Okana. Now, sorry, not Okana, Okano. He was a former employee for, I believe, Sega. Maybe he was a former employee for no, he was a former employee for Sega. And recently, online on Twitter, he started a little bit of a tweet storm, a little bit of fan fervor when he began hinting that he was working on something in regards to both the Sega and the Capcom properties. Now, those of you who are in the know, both of these franchises have done crossover games, versus games, and multiple other types of games for a long time. I think we had, what was the most recent one? We had Street Fighter versus Tekken. Then we had not Sega versus Capcom, Marvel versus Capcom. Then there's a Sega versus something game that only came out over in Japan. I'm always a fan of these crossover games. Marvel vs. Capcom was one of my favorite games that I got to play when I was younger. It was even more baller when it came to the PSP, and then even more baller when it came to the PlayStation Vita, even though I feel as though the PlayStation Vita's port of Marvel vs. Capcom 3 ended up fucking up a lot of things, because for a lot of you who don't know, on the back of the Vita was a touchpad. And for whatever reason, some genius over there, when they were creating the game, decided to allow you to be able to do combos using said touchpad, which means that you could place your finger on one end of the touchpad and drag your finger across, and your character would essentially do an infinite combo. This would have been fine if the PlayStation Vita multiplayer was its own distinct thing, separate from the people who were playing online on console. It was not, which means that overnight, a bunch of people dropped into Marvel vs. Capcom 3 who were essentially gods that were just drawing shit like it was on an Etch-a-Sketch. It messed up the multiplayer for so long until they essentially just disabled the Vita being able to connect to people that were playing on the larger consoles, and the portable side essentially just died out because there weren't enough people there to keep the multiplayer alive. Also, it's kind of annoying when you go in and everybody's essentially a god. I'm really hoping that we do get a crossover in some way, shape, or form. I think a crossover for this franchise would be fan-fucking-tastic. There are a lot of fun characters on both the Sega side and the Capcom side, but only time will tell whether or not we're about to get a versus game. But if you don't want to wait for that, I do believe that there is a fan-made versus game that exists out there. I've never played it, but I have heard whispers of it. There might be something that you might want to look into and, check out for yourself. Moving on, we've got Ghost Recon back in the news due to the fact that we're about to get a new Ghost Recon game. Now, here's the thing. Going way back in the Wayback Machine, let's go all the way back to the Xbox 360. You had Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter, which was a fantastic alternative at the time to, I believe it was Call of Duty 2. Ghost Recon was doing the whole big team battle thing back then, before, what is the other one? Battlefield. Before Battlefield came onto the scene and did the whole big team battle thing better. Now, moving forward, we had Ghost Recon Future Soldier. Future Soldier was also really good. I thought the multiplayer online components was solid. The gun crafting was really good. But the problem is it didn't pull enough people from the Call of Duty crowd to be able to essentially exist and define itself long enough before they essentially just pulled the plug and the game just died with no new content whatsoever. Now, in recent years, we've seen that they've taken the franchise in a more different direction. Ubisoft has decided that, we're not going to be competing with Call of Duty. We're not going to be competing with Battlefield. We're kind of going to go off and do our own thing. And the franchise kind of landed in this weird space between a Call of Duty campaign and The Division, where it's just basically you create your character, you drop your character into a situation, your character has to survive using gadgets or using things that they find in the field. When they first introduced this concept with Wildlands, I thought it was fantastic. I love the freedom of being able to move around the map and essentially do whatever it is that you wanted, getting bounties and contracts and flying helicopters and eliminating targets in most like crazy ways, either sneak into a compound, capture the person, take them out of the compound under the cover of darkness, or post up on a hill, aim a rocket launcher, fire it through a window, and blow him to Kingdom Come. That was fantastic. Breakpoint, in my opinion, was a step back. Narratively, for the story narrative, I found the story narrative in Breakpoint to be better, but I did not like the gameplay loops that Breakpoint essentially presented, because it leaned more towards microtransaction bullshit than the first one did. The first one was just a game, drop in, have fun, do what you need to do. Breakpoint was like, hey, can I sell you some skins? Would you like to buy some skins for your guns? Would you like to buy some skins for your characters, some clothes? That completely took me out of the game for the most part. I didn't find it fun, so I didn't stick around long enough to see if Breakpoint got better. Now, with the rumors that we're essentially getting for the new Ghost Recon game, the new Ghost Recon game is said to be gritty, realistic, and more modern warfare-like. Here's the thing. What are we talking about here? Like, are we talking about the fast-paced action of Modern Warfare, or are you talking about the way in which the series has gone with the current games, where they're a little bit more realistic, a little more militaristic? If you're talking about the direction that the campaigns have gone for the more current games, I'm all for it. I think the current Modern Warfare games, the last two that we've gotten, the remakes for Modern Warfare 4 and then Modern Warfare 5, are fantastic. I think they are great. The campaign mission where you're able to just drop in and you're tactically moving around and you feel as though you're a part of a squad and a team, that feeling is great. If you're going to be taking that feeling and then applying it to a Ghost Recon game, dropping me into a situation where I feel as though I'm an elite special forces soldier, where it's a little bit more punishing when I fuck up and a little bit more rewarding when I successfully complete a mission in the parameters that I am given, I am here for it. That sounds fucking fantastic. But if you're just talking about basically making the game more Modern Warfare like, where you're just basically running around like a Modern Warfare character in a multiplayer lobby, I'm not really interested in that. I don't think that I will have a whole lot of fun with that. I do think one of the things that they need to add in this game is that the worlds can't be as dead. I think that the worlds should take the Red Dead Redemption approach of allowing there to be at least 32 to 64 people in a server that you can run around with, you can see who are on missions, you can interact with, you can do stuff with, and that if you want to, you can turn PvP on and have actual battles with. That would be super fun. It'll be interesting to see what direction exactly this new game decides to go in, but for the most part, like I said, land somewhere in between what you did with Wildlands and the realistic approach that the current Modern Warfare games have essentially been doing, and you will create the perfect peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Moving on. And on our pirate game news. Wow. Who would have thunk? Where'd my voice go? Good God. Who'd have thunk that a well-rounded pirate game that allows you to jump in the water and swim, dive underwater and look for treasure, allows you to roam the high seas and go from ship combat to ground combat, that allows you to jump on enemy ships, that has environmental elements such as hurricanes and storms and krakens and giant sharks like the Megalodon. Who would have thunk it that game, once it finally came off of being a Xbox exclusive and it finally arrived on the PlayStation, would be number one in sales for the PlayStation at $60. Who would have thought it? Well, I mean, that's the big edition for $60. The smaller edition, which is only $40, is currently sitting at number 5 That is insane. Dear Skull and Bones, this is how you fucking do it. What you've been doing has been a travesty. I said it before. I said it when your game came out. Yes, there are games out there, War Thunder, World of Tanks, that are just basically all vehicle-based combat. But they're good vehicle-based combat. You're generic vehicle-based combat. You're 11-year-old vehicle-based combat. Nobody was having fun. Not a person. I don't even remember if Sea of Thieves allows you to customize your character. I think it does. I haven't played Sea of Thieves in years. If I remember correctly, Sea of Thieves allows you to customize your character and the way in which your character looks, because it's a little bit more of the cartoony, cel-shaded thing. But your game's not going to recover, especially not with Sea of Thieves now being on multiple different platforms, adding more and more content with its fantastic story mode, which is what I do remember, that there is a story mode in Sea of Thieves. That's good. And then they also added the Pirates of the Caribbean story mode content, which was also fantastic. This is the pirate game that more people should play, more people should experience, that you're going to have a ton of fun with in regards to your friends. I love it when I truly do love it when the game that you don't put any type of love into fails, and then the game it's just that workhorse, man. It's in the background. It's always been in the background, and when it's available to more people that are able to play it, you realize just how much fun and just how much love that actually is. I love when I see that type of shit. It's absolutely fantastic, and I really do hope that Sea of Thieves brings in all of the new fans. Because like I said, if you wanted a pirate game, there goes my voice again. If you wanted a pirate game, Skull and Bones was not it. Sea of Thieves is definitely it. And if everything tracks the way it usually is, chances are in probably like 2 months, it'll be available on PlayStation Plus for free. So that'll be even more people being able to pick up the game and get it. And that is great. And with that, we are moving on because my voice is slowly going away. And the last story of the night, Resident Evil 5 is probably getting a remake, which we really shouldn't be shocked at. I think that Capcom has been doing a fantastic job with all of the remakes. They have all been really, really good. In my opinion, I love number 5. I know a lot of people think that number 5 was a little bit of a step back from number 4 because it had more action in it than 4 did, where it kind of scaled down the horror and bumped up the action. But I love number 5. Number 5 was co-op. Me and my buddy, I think we played through the entire game in like 2 days, like just non-stop, just having fun the entire time. And I remember that there was about a 1 hour laughing session where I think we beat the game at like 2 in the morning and we bust out laughing. And you know exactly the part it is where at the very end, my man Chris Redfield squares up with a boulder and just starts throwing these uppercut haymakers to get the boulder to go over the hill so he can finally put an end to Wesker. That was the funniest thing we had both ever seen, and we laughed and laughed and laughed for so long because of how funny it was. But here's the thing. Yes, it was funny, but goddamn if that story wasn't fantastic from beginning to end, because it put a nail in a lot of the loose, disparate storylines that were going on in Resident Evil at the time, and then answered a bunch of questions that we essentially had from Resident Evil 4 in regards to where exactly the Las Plagas came from. So I'm excited. I'm absolutely excited for this. But of course, on the side of that, we know that Capcom is working on 5 Resident Evil games. What could they be? Number 1 is definitely a remake for Resident Evil 5. Then of course they're working on Resident Evil 9. So that's already 2. I honestly feel as though they're probably working on Resident Evil 6. However, they've split all 3 of the stories into their own separate games, which means that we might end up getting a game for Leon, a game for Chris, and then a game for Jake. which is more or less what I had wanted from Resident Evil 6 when Resident Evil 6 initially came out. I felt as though the decision to give us 3 protagonists with 3 different parts of the game that felt completely different, with Chris being like military and Jake being more punchy, actiony, and then Leon being classic Resident Evil. I think it would be great to separate all 3 of the properties. You could still say it's under the Resident Evil 6 umbrella, but it's the 3 different stories that are expanded upon, that are a little bit deeper, a little bit more richer. I think that would be the smartest direction to take Resident Evil in regards to that. And then again, I could be completely wrong. They could be working, let's say 45% on Resident Evil 9, 40% on Resident Evil 5, and then 15% on, let's say, Resident Evil 10, setting up the groundwork for the game that's going to come after the Resident Evil 9 is essentially done. Who knows? That could be the case. But I'm super excited for Resident Evil 5's remake. They're making the same moves that they did before they released number 4, which is the listings that are happening in regards to copyright and trademark. So we should be getting that game. Hopefully we get it towards the end of this year, or maybe we'll even get it at the beginning of next year. With how fast they've been pumping them out recently, it might be aiming more towards us getting it towards the end of this year, more likely. Oh, never mind. It's saying that it might be end of 2025, early 2026. That might be the case instead. But we'll see. I'm super excited to get my hands on Resident Evil 5 Remake. Like I said, my personal favorite, and they've been knocking it out the park with all of the remakes they've been putting out recently. But if you've enjoyed this episode of The Blip, comment down below, let me know. If you're new to the channel and you just discovered us, The Blip is a Monday to Thursday show. For those of you wondering why there wasn't a show on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, I think I'm hitting the right level of a work-life balance. So having the show be from Monday to Thursday allows news to essentially build up over Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, then I can pick up with it on Monday. But we might have something else that we'll end up dropping on Sundays. I might be eyeing a podcast on Sundays, but I don't really have the details down yet. But we shall see. We shall see. But if you're new to the channel, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, come join the family over here at Blerdcalibur, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.